The following is a public access production. It is not produced, sponsored, or endorsed by this station, the local government, or the cable providers. The program producer is solely responsible for the content of this program.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Bummy's Kitchen, or welcome if this is your first time here. Today, we've got something very special. One of my favorite holidays, top two, I would say. We've got three incredibly easy side dishes for Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving time-ish meals. Today, we've got Brussels sprouts, mac and cheese, and cranberry sauce. Most people, I'd say, will probably just go, why would I want to do that? I'll just do a canned. But in case you want to do it, here's how to do it. Very simple, really only like four ingredients-ish, I would say. You got your seasoning blend for the cranberry sauce, the cranberries raw, about 24 ounces. They say you can do water and then more sugar. I'm doing apple cider and then less sugar. You can kind of play around with it. An orange juice and zest. For the Brussels sprouts, we got Brussels sprouts, obviously, bacon. My grocery store that I went to today did not, unfortunately, have pancetta. I like pancetta a lot better. It's a lot saltier, and it gives off more fat, so you don't have to use like an oil or whatever. But they didn't have it. So bacon you can do. I did applewood smoked, so could be a cool flavoring. And then mac and cheese. Mac and cheese, we got three cheeses. I always do my own. I always shred my own cheese because it's a lot better. And we got flour and butter for the roux. I've got 1 cup of half and half, 2 cups of milk. I do 1% milk. And then I forgot to say for the Brussels sprouts, I do a balsamic glaze. I only had balsamic vinegar today, so if you want to make your own glaze, if you only have it and you don't want to go buy out basically the same thing, you can just reduce it. And if you ever do what I did today and you over reduce it a little bit, and we'll talk more about it with the cranberry sauce too, because that can be a thing. As long as you don't burn it, you can always just add more liquid and fix it. So, but just keep an eye on it. I looked away for 1 second and then all of a sudden, poof, it was donezo. I think that should just about cover us. I've got the oven preheating right now, so that should be quick. So in that case, we will start with the mac and cheese. It's going to be really quite easy. That's also going to take, they both take around the same time. If you were smart, unlike me, and you preheated it before, this should go a lot smoother, but we didn't. So this is going to be our order of operations today. You want you want your noodles. I already cooked these, so that shouldn't be a problem. Today we're not going to do oven baked mac and cheese. If you are planning to do that, you want to cook your noodles less, so when you put them in the oven, they don't turn to mush. I did 6 or 7 minutes. If you're doing oven, I would say 5 minutes is a good. I would say 1 minute per 10 minutes in the oven is roughly a good ratio. So to start, I have a non-stick pan, so I'm going to be using this crappy little plastic whisk. I would recommend if you have something like this, use it. This one's also non-stick, so I can't use that. Turn it up to, depending on what your stove is, but roughly it should all be roughly around the same at about medium heat. You can do medium high if you know what you're doing, if you've done it before. If you haven't, there's no need to take a chance with that. So first, let it get a little hot, but you can put your butter in before. This is 3 tablespoons of butter. You're supposed to do it by weight with a roux. I've yet to get my weight scale, which I meant to do, unfortunately, but that's where we're at right now. So as it's getting hotter and melting, you just kind of let it hang out. Let it melt almost all the way. So once again, if you missed the last episode, a roux. Roux is an it's a mixture, it's a thickener agent used in a lot of sauces. That's probably the most common thing you'll find it in. And it's equal part fat and flour. So you could do olive oil, you could do butter, you could do clarified butter, whatever you want to do. I'm using butter today. So it's starting to get down pretty much. And this is, I didn't actually measure it out. I probably should have. But I've been doing it for a little while, so you kind of learn to know. And so you want to do, I would say, in weight or volume, this was probably maybe 1/3 of a cup of flour in volume. If you want to do it that way, you can. It might end up looking a little dry, which is okay. You want it to be a little bit more dry. If you really feel like you need more fat, which I doubt you will, especially since we're going to be adding the cream and stuff. But if you really feel like you do, you can add slowly but surely. But also, it will, as the roux cooks a little bit, it gets more, the fat leaks, or seeps out rather. But if it's really this dry, which it's looking, this is looking a little dry. You're gonna want to do that. But you can actually just, if it's starting to look dry, you can just put your milk and cream in right away. So you don't want to do all of it yet. That was a horrible pour. You want to try and do it slowly. Normally what I like to do ahead of time is do a roux beforehand, get your milk and stuff up to temp beforehand. And then that kind of helps it thicken easier. I don't know why, but it does. And I like to also have your mac and cheese be more of a reduction sauce than a roux sauce. I mean, both are good. You should have both. But I don't like to go heavy on the roux here with mine. You can obviously touch it up a lot. Okay, it's looking thicker. Boom. Put it in there. It's gonna feel pretty thin for a little while. You're also gonna wanna cook it about 20 minutes before putting your noodles in beforehand, because to get out the flour flavor. You don't want it tasting like flour. So what we're making this mixture right now is called a bechamel, which is one of the 5 main mother sauces. When adding the cheese, it will turn into a Mornay sauce, just in case you ever wanted to sound cool and impress people. So this should be mixed in pretty well. It should be, when you're whisking it, it should feel a little hard to mix around. So here we've got our spice blend for our mac and cheese, and also some of it will be going towards the Brussels sprouts as well. So here we've got salt, I use 2 different kinds of salt. We just got a new salt over here, which is pretty nice. It's the pink salt Himalayan blend. And then I just did regular schmegular iodized mustard powder, paprika, cayenne, Cajun seasoning, black pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, all roughly around the same amounts. You don't want it to, besides the salt, you want it more to be more of a salt flavor, because that brings out the flavor of the cheese. So roughly a teaspoon besides the salt. I would say that's definitely closer to a tablespoon. And then you add it in. If you feel like it needs more or whatever, feel free to add it. Obviously, it should be to taste, but also you don't need a whole lot, since we're going to be reducing it for quite a while. That's going to be a lot of it's going to really intensify the flavor of the spices. So the more you reduce something, the more it intensifies the flavors. Okay, so this is now looking pretty good. You just want to mix it around. Some of them, especially mustard powder, for some reason really doesn't like to mix and incorporate. So just take your time to really incorporate it rather than later. It's going to really make your life a lot easier. You take it. When whisking, I like to do, some say it's like a figure 8, but I like to do it, it's more like a figure, like a snowman. You get 3 circles, and you just keep that going, put that on, and really let it get up to temp. For some reason, yeah. Beautiful. So we're gonna let that hang out for 20-ish minutes. With that beep, that just let me know that the oven is preheated. So we're gonna get started on our Brussels sprouts now. So I've cut almost all of them. So what you're going to want to do with your Brussels sprouts, except for 4. So what you're going to want to do with your Brussels sprouts is you're going to want to cut the butt off. And depending on how the size of them, I have a little wide variety. So you can see how some are larger and some are smaller. You want to cut the butt off of each one first. Very simple. That way, the butt doesn't really work very well. And so what you're going to want to do is you cut the butt off. Like these guys, they're pretty much ready to go. They're pretty small. If you cut them down further, they'll cook too fast, whereas the other ones, you really want an even size, even amount. So with this, the larger the ones, you want to cut it in half. So you get, let's find a small one. So they're roughly, I mean, this one's obviously, it's still bigger, but it's roughly around the same time. You're not going to have any that are really overcooked and then some that are undercooked, that are raw. I think that's called uniform cooking, I believe. And then, so you just toss those in. I like to toss a lot of the leaves in too. If some are looking a little suspect, I'll leave them out. Also, with the roux, with the mac and cheese, make sure to keep stirring for a lot. So until the roux really gets worked in, until the flour really gets worked in, it's gonna seep to the bottom because it's denser. And then if you're not careful and you're not watching and you're not always, stirring to make sure and always go to the edges. If you're not watching, it's gonna sink to the bottom and burn. You don't want that. Then you're gonna have to start over, and now you just wasted a bunch of ingredients. So we will have that going. for, like I said, about, yeah, roughly 20, 25 minutes. 20-ish minutes is a good amount. You can actually do 15 and then let the cheese come in, then grate the cheese in and then add them later. So maybe if you want, you can split it half and half. There's no real rule set here. And you always want to check the bottom, check and see if you're pulling up the roux. If you are pulling up the roux, make sure to continue whisking. You don't want to really leave your eye off of it, take your eye off of it until you kind of look and it stops coming off onto the whisk. And it's a lot easier when you have a metal whisk, so I recommend putting it inside of a stainless steel one, so it's easier. This also can be achieved with a rubber spatula. I always find that a whisk is the thing to do the job. So if you can tell, it's starting to thicken a lot more, which is nice. The more you heat it up, the more the roux will activate too, so keep that in mind. If you're ever like, oh my gosh, it's not thickening in time, it's not thickening, or I added the roux. Patience. So for the glaze, you can put it on. I always put it on at the end for the Brussels sprouts. That makes it a lot easier. Here, so you got your Brussels sprouts. You put your spices in. Get the bacon in. So the bacon is going to be the source of the vast majority, or should be rather, majority of your fat. You're also going to want to use maybe just a smidge of oil. Just a smidge of oil, and you can see now it's really starting to thicken, so don't get too, if it's not, once again, if you're like, what, it's not thickening, it's not doing it what it's supposed to do, just give it a little bit of time, but just make sure you're still whisking and keeping your eye on it. So when you shouldn't pull it up. Yeah, so if you can see, it's really starting to become that kind of bechamel sauce, which is what we want. You just keep mixing. And always taste and test, because once you put the noodles in, you can't really taste it that much or reduce it that much. If you feel like the sauce isn't clinging to the noodles quite enough and you're not going to be baking it, which also will dry it out even more, only put the noodles in when you really feel like the sauce is ready. So we're gonna lower the heat just a little bit, so to make sure it doesn't boil as well as burn on the bottom. And you really wanna cook it enough time to where it no longer has that flour flavor. You take this, gonna mix it all around. Incorporate the Brussels sprouts and the bacon fat and with the olive oil as well as the seasoning. You don't need that much because the bacon does have fat. It's not as fatty, as salty and flavorful as the pancetta, but it will work. Give that a mix. Mix it up. If you're a vegetarian, you don't have to use the bacon or any pork, or you just don't eat pork. You don't need to put it in. I don't quite know an effective substitute yet, but you don't have to put it in. So we're gonna save the glaze to the end. Layer the Brussels sprouts all on. Whoops. All right, you're gonna wanna layer them on, spread them out just like this so they can, there's none that are getting a lot more color and a lot more heat. And then make sure you're watching your heat as well. And then we're gonna put it in the oven. All right, so we're finally ready to put our Brussels sprouts in. Once again, it's about 20 minutes, similar to the mac and cheese. So if you, so if you can time it with the mac and cheese, kind of put it all together, and it should hopefully be nice. That's the nice thing about these two. If you want to add all these together and do them all at the same time, you can, which is good. It doesn't have to be like there's not one that's going to takes 10 hours. So this is all really nice and quick, easy. Should be an hour of cooking, and then you're good. All right, now it's time for the cranberry sauce. We've got this mac and cheese sauce working, the bechamel working. And we've got the Brussels sprouts in the oven now. So while those two are going, we are going to turn on the stove, put it at low. I mean, mine don't really technically have a low. It's either just hot or a little bit less hot. You're gonna turn it on to low as you can. Hopefully you're working with a nicer stove that treats you better. So first, you're gonna want to take your liquid. Usually, so if you're doing water and sugar, they usually say 2 cups of water and half a cup of sugar. It's kind of a lot, but that's rough. That's what we're working with right now. I did 2 cups of apple cider, and then I have a tiny bit more sugar in there too. Not a whole lot. You don't need a whole lot, and also play around with your blend as well, with your seasoning blend. Today, I have cinnamon, nutmeg, black pepper, a little bit of salt. I'm using cane sugar, so if you have like granulated sugar, that depends. Once again, if you're gonna do the water way and do just the sugar, like if you don't want to go out and buy apple cider just for this, you can, and you already have sugar, do half a cup of sugar, teaspoon of all the other spices, nutmeg, cinnamon, all that. And you can add that in to the beginning as well. I forgot. So this one is a stainless steel pan, so I can use that to incorporate the spices. Once again, the earlier you have it, ooh, that's smelling nice. That is smelling nice. The earlier you have it in, the more it's gonna go, or the more intense the flavor will be. So we've got the cranberry sauce base, I guess you could say, going. So I have these split up into 2 separate things because one, you're gonna want to add about 1.5 of the bags. You see them, they're like the 12-ounce bags. You're gonna want to add 1.5 of these first. Let them blister. Let them do their thing. Let them cook. Let them cook, and then afterwards, when you're almost done, when you're just about done and it's already really hot, so it's not going to take long, you can just have them kind of come in, and they'll be like, if you want chunky. If you don't want chunky and you don't want the kind of more extra, you can just do without and just leave it kind of more of like your classic cranberry sauce. It all just depends on you. I like to keep them in a little bit. Not too many. You know, you don't want it egregiously chunky, but I mean they blister and they enough too, so it all just kind of depends, whatever you're looking for. So now we'll give that a little bit of a mix, get them all coated. Hopefully this isn't too small of one. Oh, that smells nice. Okay. Bump the heat up a little bit. Now you can bump the heat up a little bit. Just make sure you don't go a little overboard, because this can caramelize really quickly and you might go a little over. So just keep an eye on it. I usually keep it at the low to medium, just so you want the cranberries to be cooked and nice and you don't want it to be all hard and like a rock. If that happens, once again, you can just add more liquid unless it's really burnt, and then that'll loosen it up. But we want to try and avoid that, because it also takes away from your flavor now. So it's something you gotta watch at. That's another thing. If you feel like it's a little too strong and you're like, whoa, add some liquid. That should hopefully pull it back quite some. As well as, you don't need anything too high, a pan like this will be nice, because you're not going to be boiling it. Ideally, it shouldn't spill over, and as they cook, it condenses, so you should be all set with a pan like this. But even a saucepan, not a saucepan, even a saute pan, if you have something that's even smaller, that should be fine, as long as you're not moving around egregiously. So, if you feel like with your cheese sauce, if you ever feel like you're like, wow, now it's really starting to stick, it's like at the consistency that I really want, but the flour flavor is still in there and it still tastes like bread, you can always just put a lid on it, stop it from reducing more, and then take it off when you're ready, just to help manage your heat levels. All right, so our Brussels sprouts are looking done. We can go ahead and kill the heat, turn them off. Sure. All right, so we pulled them out. I always wait just a little bit. I only have glass bowls, so ideally you don't want to use them when it's so hot, just in case. So I let it cool down. If you have something better than a glass bowl, like a ceramic or whatever, feel free to just dump them in right away. And then we'll mix it with the glaze. I always just try and, just to keep that from breaking up, because you don't want it too hot, because then it might thicken more. So it really only takes maybe 2 minutes. So when that happens, then we can just mix it together, and that will be nice. In the meantime, we've got our cranberry sauce. It's starting to thicken up now, which is good. It's looking pretty decent. I'm holding off on doing the orange juice and the orange zest until towards the end. I've done it at the beginning, and like I said, the flavor really intensifies the earlier you put it in and the more reduction you get on it. I feel like it overpowers it a lot, and it starts tasting more like an orange berry sauce rather than what we're kind of looking for. So keep it. It also it can make it a little bit more tart. So it all just depends. Play around with it. It's up to you. If you like that flavor and you like it more and you feel like you're gonna want it more, feel free to put that in earlier. It all just depends, really. Okay, the sauce is now looking really pretty good. It's a little fatty. I probably should have just skimmed it right there, but who's gonna sue me? So what we want to do first, we've got our cheeses here. we're looking at about, so we've got 3 cheeses. I don't remember exactly which ones. I do remember this is the smoked Gouda. We've got Monterey Jack, Vermont Sharp Cheddar, and smoked Gouda. So I always shave it my own. I typically do the larger one. I feel like it incorporates it easier. So you just do it like that. Ideally, if you can, keep the cheese in the fridge longer. It makes it easier to grate, but either works. You can see this has been out of the fridge for about an hour now, and it's still working. It's still working pretty well. So it's just if you want to make your life even easier, do that. So we're doing about 1/3 of each, which equates to, I forget how many ounces these all are, but it's about, I would say it's about maybe 6 ounces each to give you a total of about 18 ounces of cheese. And also, again, I haven't really tested with that, so if you feel like it really needs more, go for it. Which it might, we'll see. There's 2. Yeah, these cheeses that I'm doing right now, I feel like have always been really good melting cheeses. Some cheeses, some cheeses are good for some things, some are good for others. These cheeses, I feel like there's a reason that people always use, cheddar cheese for it. To me, they melt really well, and they're saltier and they incorporate their flavor better. So these are the cheeses I'm working with. Try and keep I would stick with around those. Okay. So we got the cheeses on standby in case we need them more. I'm going to incorporate the cheese now. I doubt you'll really need that much more than what we just did, but if you do, if you really like it that cheesy, because cheese also takes away from some of the moisture, and if you have it just too cheesy, then it doesn't stick as well anymore. It just kind of feels less like a sauce and more just like when you microwave cheese or whatever, So I would recommend doing too much. I think right there was a good amount. Yeah, that's sticking on up quite nicely. So you can always test how well the sauce will stick to the noodle by trying to stick it to the noodle. That's always going to be a surefire. And if you feel like it's sticking pretty well and it's not really hanging off, I think then you've probably gotten to a good point. I'll add that in along with the rest of the noodles. Be careful, especially if you don't shock them and you keep the starch on them. They'll stick to each other. It's going to be kind of hard to get them off, so feel free to mix them up a little bit beforehand, just so it doesn't just splatter all in and then you have a bunch of hot sauce all over you. Just some thought for your food. Okay. All right, so once again, it depends if you shock them. If you shock them, definitely you can cook them over. If you don't shock them, or if you don't shock them, I would try and make sure that you don't cook them all the way, because the noodles will continue cooking after you take them out. So you can just keep them here, keep them mixed all together, mix them up. Put them in, if you feel like it's still a little runny or whatever, maybe it's not cheesy enough. I feel like it almost is, just about. If you feel like it's not, you can always add more or whatever to your liking. If you need it to reduce just even that much more, feel free. Once again, this is why I say get your reduction out the way first, because now you already have the noodles in. You can't reduce it that much more without cooking them too long. So only put your noodles in when you really feel as though you're ready for them, which I feel like it was. Now, for our Brussels sprouts, they are cool enough, maybe a little bit too cool, but that's okay. It's gonna be okay. Take this. Yeah, that works. Take them, add them to the bowl, whichever bowl you're gonna use. Knock them in, try and pull everything. Something else that I really like to use with Brussels sprouts that we used in school, and I really liked it, was I really liked using Dijon mustard. I think that's a really great combo. So you take this, you take the Brussels sprouts, we've got our glaze, play around with it, see how much it needs, whatever you like. If you don't even like glaze, you really don't need it, but I think it adds like the acidity to take away from all the fattiness of the bacon. And so play around with it. You don't need that much. You don't need much. I honestly might have done a little too much, but that's gonna be okay. You let it sit a little bit, and voila. Okay, that's looking nice. I'll put the lid on so it doesn't break. I'll keep that for that, and then now I need another, something smaller. Okay, last but not least, we have our sauce. They're still unbroken, I would say. I turned down the heat so that it didn't, once again, it didn't fully get too caramelized too thickened before I got there, before they popped. You can keep letting it go. You eventually want to get a little bit thicker, but also when you stop, when it's hotter, it's going to be a lot more movable and wet. When you cool it down, it becomes a lot thicker. So keep that in mind as well. And if you need to, which I'm going to do, you can put a lid on it to make sure that you cook the berries and get them all popped before it thickens too much. All right, I've got another, what is it, it's about 2/3 of a cup. I'll pour in some of it. You don't need to use it all. Just play around with it. If you feel like it's getting too thick, do that. I might bump the heat just a little bit more, mix it all in. Once again, as long as it's not burnt, I'll keep saying it, as long as it is not burnt, you can keep adding however much liquid you need. Okay, so I ended up using all of it because I felt like that's kind of what it needs. I'm going to mix it all around, turn up the heat a little bit, put the lid on, and let everything cook. Because right now these cranberries are still not fully exactly where I want them to be. I don't think I'm going to add the second bit. Maybe I will later if I feel like it, but right now I think we're looking pretty good. I'll just let them cook a little bit for maybe 5 more minutes and it should be good. Okay, we're just about ready to put the oranges in. I like to do the juice now, like I said, a little bit later on so it doesn't affect it too much. Just about that is all set, all you really need. Now, you take this and you put a little zest in, and you can also do this for the garnish as well when you're done and when it's cooled. So yeah, this takes, I mean, I don't know about you, but I usually like my cranberry sauce on the colder side and refrigerated, so I would do this even the night before, and then so that way you can just kind of put it all in and you don't have to worry about it. You can just get it, let it cool, go the night cooling down, and then you should be all set for whatever event, whether it is Thanksgiving Day or you have an event, a little get together, a little party, whatever it might be. I think this is a good option. Thank you guys so much for coming down for this episode. This has been 3 really simple Thanksgiving recipes that you can do with no experience. It takes really not very long, and it's sure to be a hit. Come on down next time for some more holiday fun. Thank you guys.